Make I play this Peter Obi video, make you listen to am, because na the video I see make me do this small video, because this man he deserve award. He get good in ten tion for us. Only just our corrupt politician no wan gree am. Oya, lis ten to the video, make you hear wetin he talk. Thank you. Don't
Your
forget to
Excellency, go and
subscribe
read the letter I wrote to World Bank,
and share
asking
my
for $82
video.
million
Follow me on
to
Facebook
build Kainji
and
Dam,
YouTube channel.
to provide 760
Thank
kilo
you.
megawatts
Listen.
of
God bless
electricity.
you.
And he wrote it clear. I'm applying for this loan strictly to borrow for this investment to spur growth, economic growth for my country. That was 58 years ago. That facility is still standing. What he borrowed is $82 million. We now owe $120 billion without anything to show for it, because we consumed it. It was for consumption. There's nothing wrong with borrowing. Every country of the world borrows. No country. Every country of the world borrows. America is the biggest economy. They are owing over 100% of their GDP. The second biggest economy is China. They are owing about 60% of their GDP. The third one is Japan. Japan is owing 230% of their GDP. It can go on and show you. Even Netherlands, that had the highest sovereign wealth fund of 1.4 trillion, Your Excellency, is owing 50% of their GDP. So everybody borrows. The difference is what you use the borrowing to do. Where did you invest it? What did you create? Our own was for consumption. People are borrowing for investment. And I've gone from countries to countries everywhere to show that this is happening. China borrowed. In 1990, 93% to 95% of Chinese people live under poverty. Today, it's less than 2%. India was a similar situation, under 5%. Vietnam was actually 96%. Today, they have less than 3%. So, ours that we have been throwing people out of poverty. And just to illustrate to you why borrowing is different here and other countries. I was in Bangladesh in 2010. I've studied 31 countries, comparing them with Nigeria. In Bangladesh in 2010, Your Excellency, they had a GDP of $115 billion with a per capita of $747 per capita. And their debt was $45 billion, 36% of their GDP in 2010. Nigeria, as at then, had a GDP of $375 billion, per capita of $2,250. So we are 3 times Vietnam in terms of per capita, which is a real measure of wealth. And our debt then was $30 billion, less than 10% of our GDP. Today, Vietnam GDP is $340 billion. They've grown by 3 times. Their per capita is $2,050. They've grown by 10 times. Their debt also increased to about $116 billion, which remains even less than 36%, because it's now about 32% of their GDP, which means they borrowed more, they invested it. If you go to Vietnam today, the exports, their overseas diaspora fund, everything have increased. Today, Vietnam exports garments, $36 billion, twice what we earn from oil. Garments, they're not just garments. That's what they export. Not it's something that is sophisticated. And all small businesses, which we're not doing here. In our own situation, our GDP today is about $400 billion. Our per capita, which is a real measure of wealth, is now 1,000, call it 2,000. So we've actually lost about 11% of what we were in 2010. And our debt have gone from $30 billion to to $120 billion. So we borrowed about $100 billion, which nobody can explain where was invested. And when you ask, they say it's for capital project. If you borrow money and it didn't impact on your GDP, it didn't impact on your capital, you consumed it. That is the crisis we face as a nation. The consequence is that our debt servicing now is over 90% of our income. In 2001, first 5 months of 2001, Your Excellency, Nigeria as a country made 1,847 billion naira. We used 1,802 to service debts. 98%, only 45 remaining for a country of 200 million people. And we're borrowing more. We said last year our budget was 13.5 trillion. We are going to borrow only 5 trillion. We borrowed 7. This year, our budget plus subsidy and everything will be hitting about 20. They said they are going to borrow only about 6. Your Excellency, we're not going to borrow less than 10. And that is the crisis of us. And what are we even borrowing? With these monies, we are now issuing foreign bonds of 2040, 2045, 26, when we are no longer going to be here. And our children, in the past 1 year, Nigeria has not put 1 naira in the sinking fund. Not 1 naira. So even when you are servicing debt, you're supposed to be saving money to pay the debt. When it matures, we are not putting money there. The crisis is that when we are dead, our children will have nowhere because we've eaten their future. And nobody is talking about that. And we need to move this country in. And there's nothing wrong in this country. It's a country that can be changed. Look at something like Taraba. Look at what is happening all over the world. Today we are struggling with oil, sharing of oil money. Who is doing that? Even in America, that is the biggest country in the world. Texas, that is producing several more oil than we are producing. The biggest state in America is California. And what does California do? Texas is not even number 1. They're not number 2. They're number 3. Texas GDP today is 3.4 trillion. 8 times Nigerian GDP. They have no oil. What they're exporting is agriculture and knowledge. Agricultural materials and knowledge. That's all that is making them that thick. When we are here fighting over a diminishing access that has since expired, all you didn't say Venezuela. Venezuela have 10 times more oil than Nigerian deposits, and yet they are collapsed. And we're here fighting about oil. No country is talking about oil today. Vietnam, countries and nations have every. Look at the vast land. There's nothing in power distribution. It's very easy. Anybody who tells you any story is this. Your Excellency, let me conclude because he's introduced me. I was governor of a state. My dear people, today God has given you position where you are in authority, where you are delegates. You won't be there forever.